45 police departments in the state have in-house access to rapid DNA technology. This fairly new system has the ability to match evidence from a scene to a convicted felon. Channel 3's Olivia Schuler explains how this tool is speeding up investigations for police.
I take my sample, which would be inside the glove.
A quick swab of evidence, and into this machine the sample goes.
Now we have to wait for an hour and a half, and we'll get a result from the state lab.
If the DNA from evidence matches a person in the convicted offender database, investigators may have a lead.
Getting that lead it's a very good feeling.
New Haven police investigators have been using the tool in-house for about a year now. Prior to that, they had to trek to the state lab in Meriden to test samples. Now they're seeing how much quicker they're able to process evidence. Once investigators entered the samples into the terminal, police identified a suspect and could pursue a warrant. The terminal is also used to help solve major crimes. Cheryl Carrero, Deputy Director of the Division of Scientific Services, says nearly 500 officers have been trained, and in turn, using the rapid DNA terminal has led to 200 leads.
And I'm sure there will be more to come. This is the future of DNA testing.
In Meriden, Olivia Schuler, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to HIDS 2024. I'm Peter John McEnany, Senior Technical Application Scientist with the Forensic Science Applications Group. I've been with Thermo Fisher for about 8 years now, and the last few years, I've been working on a couple projects that are aimed at elevating our rapid DNA solution for crime scene evidence. And now I want to introduce Cheryl Carrero, who's the Deputy Director of Forensic Biology and DNA at the Connecticut Division of Forensic Services. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for joining.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Good, very good.
You have been involved with rapid DNA for a little while now. Can you tell us who you are, where you work, and what you do as it relates to rapid DNA and what Connecticut is doing right now?
Sure. I'm the Deputy Director here in Connecticut. I'm Forensic Biology and DNA Unit. I'm also the DNA Technical Leader. But the RAPID program came into our lab by our director, Dr. Guy Villaro. He wanted to help investigative leads and sending them out quicker in a turnaround time for the police departments. And so we started looking at the RapidHIT ID at Thermo, and we purchased one in 2020. And then by 2021, July of 2021, we went live. Connecticut's not an arrestee state, so we couldn't use it in booking stations, but we checked out all the ins and outs of what needed to be done, and we copied our state convicted offender database and put it into a standalone database, small pond, and we were able to use it for single source, suspected single source samples, and be able to see if there was a match and be able to aid in the investigation of the police departments. And it's been very, very successful since 2021.
Fantastic. And since 2021, you guys have validated and have been using the Rapid Intel sample cartridge. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any limitations that you've discovered with that sample cartridge or your workflow around blood, saliva samples? Are those the main samples that you guys test?
Yeah, you got the top three: blood, wearer DNA, saliva. Trace DNA is not well suited for rapid DNA. They're always mixtures and low level. So we try to stay with body fluids. Wearer DNA is very successful. We train our police departments to be able to know what is an acceptable sample to run. We have been working with them for the past 3 years, and we have gotten a 25% hit rate between our convicted offender, the copy of the convicted offender, with our unknown rapid samples.
Fantastic. And you have multiple RapidHIT ID instruments throughout the state. Is that correct?
We have 3 machines in the laboratory. One of those will eventually go to a mobile van. Waterbury PD, Greenwich PD, Bridgeport PD, New Haven PD, a state police troop, and Hartford PD. And these were selected based upon the high crime areas and where other agencies can go to and not have to drive 45 minutes to get to the lab to run the sample. So they can go to, for instance, Hartford and run the sample there because we're all interconnected. It's been great, really.
Fantastic. And one of the things about your rapid DNA workflow for crime scene samples is you review every single sample before it is uploaded to the database that you mentioned earlier. Is that correct?
We do. We turned off the automatic upload on the green check marks. It's just because we wanted more control over what was going into our small bond database. And we wanted to, review samples to look at how, full green check mark. We want to look, did this give high peaks, low peaks? There's things we want to look at as we venture further into our program development.
Great. And speaking of further development, sounds like you've been fully operational since 2021. So whenabouts did you hear about our latest version of software, the version 2.0 RapidHIT ID system software and the Rapid Link software and the new Rapid Intel Plus cartridge? Right.
So I've discussed with Thermo a lot of things with the regular Intel cartridge, and there was a lot of peak height imbalance in the single source samples. If we're looking at it as a DNA analyst, okay, this could be the basis of the amplification on the Intel. Conventional testing is 5 times more sensitive. We found that out from our validation. So they actually sort of said last year we have something coming out. And when Doug Harris made the announcement about QAS adopting RapidHIT for investigative leads, you guys shared with us that you were making an Intel Plus cartridge, and we were quite excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like one of the key topics to hit on is that review process and the correlation between maybe peak height balance, sensitivity, that's leading to more and more samples with the previous cartridge needing review. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, very fair. There, every single crime scene sample that runs on the Intel, almost all of them are yellow check marks. It could be a complete single source profile, but there might be artifact or two, and they'll call it, or the peak height imbalance is not within the limits that the analysis software wants. So with the Intel Plus, the samples we've been running, a lot of more green check marks, which is very good for those labs or PDs that want to automatically use the green check mark into their database.
Yeah, we are going to demonstrate and look at a couple of those profiles. But first, I just want to ask you a couple general questions around your upgrade process, because you were an existing RapidHIT ID user. You're already familiar with processing crime scene evidence on the RapidHIT ID instrument. When you made this, not the switch, but the decision to upgrade an instrument and get the new software, get the new chemistry, what was that process like? What was that experience like, including, acquiring the software, having it installed, and the training, which I actually was a part of. So no pressure.
The training was excellent. It really was. Connecting it to our server, the IT portion was a little lagging. I think because we were the guinea pigs with upgrading an actual instrument and then being able to connect to the network. So that was a little hit or miss, but you guys were learning, and it's much better now, I'm sure. The use of the Rapid Link 2.0 is so much better than no offense, but it's so much better than the original one. I really enjoy working with that one and can't wait to upgrade to all of our instruments and use it.
Great. No, glad to hear it. Glad to hear that you love Rapid Link 2.0. So that basically covers your first impressions of the software. Do you have any first impressions of the chemistry, the new Rapid Intel Plus cartridge?
Yeah, I completely noticed that there was more peak balance. I was comparing what we ran in validation and actually what some blood swabs looked like from real crime scene samples to the validation samples that we made. So much better peak height ratios. And I found that it's not hugely more sensitive, but there is slight sensitivity because I saw that some samples that dropped out at the larger loci were in with the Intel Plus. So, you could say sample variation could affect that, but I take it as maybe there's a little bit more sensitivity with it.
And I know you guys are going to be primarily taking advantage of the general protocol, which is geared more towards the traditional spun cotton swab, the much larger swab compared to a specialized swab. Have the improvements like the balance and maybe the sensitivity led to more confidence in the case type evidence? And I say that because, tying it back to more green check marks or less, yellows, is that a true statement to make?
In a way, more confidence in the sense that you're going to get green check marks, but being a DNA analyst and looking at the data, I can tell if it's a single source profile with a couple loci dropout. So Intel was giving that, and that's why we have 900 samples, been run so far. But we know they're reproducible, robust single source samples, and we know through years that STRs can be reproduced multiple times, no problem. But I do like the 3 options for and the two runs, general and specialized, for the Intel, and we validated all 3, and all 3 are basically the same. Flocked swabs do a little better on like liquid blood or body fluids. But in general, a cotton swab, which the PDs will use, it's going to get hard for them to use a flock swab and know when to use it. But the cotton swab, or if they have a cotton swab and they take the flock and push it up against the cotton, that works too. But we're basically can use all 3. They all work, but we're going to focus on the cotton swabs, and then the flock swabs we will use when when it's possible that we can get in there and say, hey, wait, use a flock swab.
Okay, fantastic. And I do want to take a quick moment just for our viewers to expand further a little bit on the general and specialized protocols. So when we created the RapidHIT ID software 2.0, we wanted to maximize sensitivity, but we didn't want to take away the option to just use a general spun cotton swab that almost all crime labs, law enforcement agencies either use or are familiar with. So we have 2 protocols. The general one is really, like I said, geared towards that spun cotton swab. The difference is the general protocol uses a larger volume of lysis buffer to collect the DNA into a lysate. The specialized protocol uses a much smaller volume and is really only meant to be used with a specialized swab, like you mentioned, a mini or micro flock swab. The characteristics of those swabs are that they have a much smaller tip, they absorb a much smaller amount of liquid, so they can be used with that smaller lysis volume to produce a much more concentrated lysate. We don't want to mix and match the general protocol with a micro swab and the specialized protocol with a cotton swab, because that particular combination can lead to full absorbency of the lysis buffer and no release of that lysate downstream into PCR and further on. Just wanted to provide a little bit of background there before we jump right into the software. But again, one more quick question for you. Are there any plans to expand on your sample types? You mentioned blood, body fluids, and wearer. Are there any plans to expand on that with Rapid Intel Plus or investigate additional sample types?
Yes. If I could just go back to your comments about the cotton swab.
Yeah.
The reason why we found out that the flock was better with liquids, it's smaller. The cotton swab with wearer DNA is slightly better because you have more surface area.
Sure.
To capture those cells. So I wanted to point that out. We take it as the police agencies have these pieces of evidence and they take 2 swabs, one for conventional testing and one for rapid. And we've always done that, and that's always the case with every case. And so far, 100% concordance with what we send out to the through small ponds and rapid hit to the real true CODIS hit and then report with statistics. 100% concordance. Maybe a second contributor might come up once in a while on some of those samples for conventional, but overall it's 100% concordant. We feel that agencies have it in their possession. It's their chain of custody. They haven't sent it to the lab. So we will advise them, hey, you don't want to, swab a doorbell or something. It's probably not the best for rapid. And some of them will say, oh, but I just want to try it. I was like, and I explained to them the limitations, and I explained to them that they possibly can be losing 50% of their sample. But in the end, we give advice. It's their evidence. It's not ours yet. So I don't feel that there's anything on the lab in the sense, and Rapid is outside of our accreditation. We don't have anything to do with our accreditation. And it's a tool for police. So we kind of let them run. And I think Intel Plus will help because of the, better peak height balance, and the, the dropout now is coming in. So yeah, I think there'll be more green check marks and more samples that hit our threshold to be able to put into small pond to search, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of evidence, why don't we go ahead and transition over to actually looking at some of your validation samples. You provided a couple examples for us that we can actually demonstrate use of the RapidLink 2.0 software. So I actually have that software loaded on my computer right now. I am running this in Google Chrome, the recommended browser, and I just have this maximized on my Macintosh computer. It is browser-based, can be run on any computer system, and essentially this is what the login screen looks like. Okay, we have a username and password for each user, and once I sign in, the first thing that we're going to see is most likely a long list of our runs, our previous runs, incoming runs. I don't have any. I'm not actually connected to an instrument. Runs that have been reviewed, runs that have been uploaded. I'm not connected to a database, so I have nothing uploaded. And then completed runs that have been marked as reviewed. Okay. Now, you provided 5 different samples. And I'm going to demonstrate a quick and easy way to find those samples amidst the 2 different pages that we have here. So on this run list, I've got 2 different pages, just one on that last page. But just to find yours, I could search by date range, and I could put in a to and a from date. I could search by profile quality, but maybe I don't know if those were green, yellow, or red. And I could search by status, and there are a lot of different statuses in here. I know that I haven't reviewed them. These are just validations, so I could quickly find them that way, but I might have a whole bunch of other samples that need review as well. What I do know about your samples is that I could filter by the first couple letters of the names because they all started with VAL, and if I just do that, I get everything. I could also add this little dash here to further filter out these particular samples. But in just providing some search filter text, I can filter down to just your 5 samples. And now I want to show that RapidLink 2.0, every table has its own settings. And we can quickly say, well, how many rows do we want to show for each screen or each page? And what columns do we want to show or hide? And I've hidden a couple of the default just so that we can get everything to fit nicely on my computer screen for the purposes of this demonstration. Now, I've also added in a couple comments here, which you can do if I just select the sample and choose more actions, add or edit comments. I can come in here and we can see my comment for this sample was, hey, this is from Connecticut, this was a water bottle, and this was run using the general protocol. Just a fun thing that you can do is add comments to all of your samples. So in order to view the electropherogram, which is something brand new to RapidLink and new for RapidLink 2.0, I have 2 options. I can either click on the hyperlink that is the sample name, and I'll be taken directly to the electropherogram. However, I won't be in a review mode. I won't be able to make edits or complete a review for that profile. But that's what we're going to do today, because we're not actually in the process of DNA workflow. If I did want to review and make edits, I would select this row or this sample and then click Review Sample, and the same electropherogram would launch, but I would be able to make edits and complete a review. So let's dig right into this first sample. I'm going to click on the hyperlink, and we're going to load the brand new electropherogram or trace viewer as part of RapidLink 2.0. And just to kick off the discussion about this sample, again, this was a water bottle sample. Did you swab the water bottle and then put the swab into the Intel Plus sample cartridge?
Correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so you didn't know exactly how much was going to be on the swab, but maybe you knew how much was going to be on this kind of mock evidence type sample.
Yeah, we took 2 swabs, and we actually, in the validation, conventionally tested everything to show that you can get 100% concordance. Just FYI.
Perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you for all of that information. We love to hear all that. And so do our viewers, right? So taking a look at this, it is based off of GeneMapper IDX. So those users out there that use IDX should feel relatively comfortable with this, although it is a completely new software. Okay, so it has a little bit of the GeneMapper IDX features, but it also is built on a whole new web-based platform. So it just looks and feels a little bit different. One of the things that is unique to Rapid Intel Plus, which is our sample cartridge for evidence or case type samples, is the addition of the STO or STO flag, and then the quant small and quant large reported DNA concentrations that are reflective of the amount of DNA at the time of PCR. So for every Rapid Intel Plus sample in RapidLink 2.0, you are going to see the indicator flag for the STO flag, and you're going to see the quant values. Those are unique to Rapid Intel Plus. If you were to process an ACE cartridge on RapidLink 2.0, you would see almost everything exactly the same, but you won't see the STO flag or the quant values, because those quant values are based on these new additional peaks here at these new loci. And I just noticed I don't have my marker header showing. So let's go into our preferences really quick and turn our marker ranges on. And now we can see, I don't know why that wasn't on before. Maybe I did it for demonstration purposes, but now you can see the name of this new marker here, QQS for quant and quality small, and QQL, quant and quality large. These are our brand new markers, brand new peaks for both internal quality control and quantification. And that internal quality control is really about, is your sample degraded? Is it inhibited? If it were, those flags would also be shown right up here at the top in this little sample header section. Now, this looks like a beautiful DNA profile, and I don't see that there are any markers highlighted yellow or red for quality issues. And if you remember back on the run screen, we had a really nice green square and basically a pass as far as the run quality assessment.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to talk about with this sample before I go into a few more bells and whistles about the software?
Well, just in general, the QQS and the QQL, I mean, the first, number one, is human DNA and how that amps, and it's for the sample, basically. Number two is a synthetic piece of DNA. So if something happens with the PCR, number two is going to look different. There's going to be maybe a high small with a low large because it's degraded. And you could see there's sometimes samples that the 2 shows and then the 1 is gone, and it's just, there's no sample, no DNA sample there. So that we have shown that too. We use the peak heights also, just so you know, you could do that with the settings.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I love the new little quant. It's helpful when, you know, you have a question about, is it the degradation or the inhibition too.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the number 2 peaks at these new markers, they are amplifying synthetic DNA. So they really are geared towards, is there PCR inhibition? For degradation and quantity of DNA, that is the number 1 piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
I might have switched the two. Yeah.
Yeah. Oops. I just highlighted the wrong thing. And as you can see, perfect demonstration in this sample is, like you said, the number 1 peaks can be a lot lower than the number 2 peaks because they are amplifying the human DNA that is present in that sample if it is present. And because of these low peak heights, you can see here our reported quant values are pretty low, 315 picograms for the small range and 172 for the large range. Something I wanted to point out that you've probably figured out as well is that because of these IQC peaks in the FAM or the blue dye channel, we typically end up with what you're seeing here is the STR peaks in the profile look shorter. They look smaller or less peak amplitude than the rest of the profile, but that's because the blue dye channel is sizing its y-axis to the largest peak. If we go ahead and come in here, and I'm just going to use this feature where I see the little magnifying glass, I can draw, and I'm just going to extend it to everything except for those number 2 peaks. And when I let go, it sizes now to this guy at TPOX. And now you get that visual kind of recognition that, okay, my FAM peaks do appear to be as high in amplitude as the rest of my sample. I don't know if you've picked up on that, but it's just something that I like to use. And
Makes sense.
yeah, and we have this button right here to reset the zoom. Okay, so in GeneMapper, you could just double click in that same area. If we just click this button right here, it'll reset the zoom, and you'll know if you're zoomed in because it'll be underscored with this blue line here. So if I click that, it just resets the zoom right back to the settings that I gave it right here from 60 to 460. And you also mentioned the labels. So if I go to labels here, I can actually choose to see the size or the height. But for demonstration purposes, most of the time I leave that off because I want to be able to see all my different dye channels, and adding more information to those labels, it just makes it harder to see everything. Okay, now let's see. If we're doing okay on time, one thing I want to jump to is this one sample you provided that has a quality flag. So this would have been a yellow check mark on the instrument, and it would have alerted the user, hey, we definitely want to review the sample, but in your case, you review every sample. So you would click on this, or I'm going to go to the review sample option. And I don't know about you, but the first thing I would do is look for, okay, what's the problem here? And the easiest way for me to do that is to look at the highlighting around the locus or the marker header. And for this particular sample, I'm noticing 2 things. Number 1, we've got a melogenin has a yellow highlighting around that marker header. It's also showing the process quality value flag, which is something that I've toggled on. And then lastly, just looking at that FAM dye channel, I can see, a tremendous difference between the number 1 peak or our quant peak at the quant markers and the number 2s. So right away, I have an idea. Maybe this is a low level sample, but who knows? It could be just the scaling, right? But if I look at the QTS and QTL, now I've got maybe a little bit of confirmation that, yeah, this is a pretty low level sample. I'm showing 73 picograms to 94 picograms at amplification. So
But the peak heights are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Balanced.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we are in the, let's say, 100 plus to maybe 300 RFU range for all of the STR markers, but I'm not seeing any imbalance with our Rapid Intel Plus chemistry and peak height ratios that have been built into the system, which is fantastic, right? This is, for all intents and purposes, all pretty much a green sample, but why is it yellow? Let's dig deeper into that just a little bit. we can see our stochastic indicator or our stochastic flag is actually red. And for those viewers at home, our stochastic indicator is built off of the peak heights of our 5 largest STR markers. So we found that that was the best representative or indicator for potential dropout or peak height imbalance throughout the profile. Okay, so we're in the red zone, which means we could be at a high risk of allelic dropout. But we're not seeing any flags for minimum peak height at our STR markers. But we are seeing at amelogenin that X, and this does look like a female sample, so this is an XX, if you will, homozygous, and we're getting the low peak height flag. Now, if I go back to my preferences here, you can see that I have PQV trigger peak on. If I turn that off and save this, essentially that LPH or low peak height flag disappears. It's something that you can easily toggle on and off if you want to have that extra kind of heads up that, hey, here's the problematic locus or marker for the yellow run result. Likewise, even faster, I can go to more actions right here, and I can see PQV trigger peak. I turned it off in my preferences, but I can turn it right on right here and see that value. Now, let's dig deeper into this. Let's look at what the peak information toggle does. You can see if I highlight over this peak, nothing's happening. But if I choose peak information, now when I roll through this dye channel, I actually get information about where this circle is, okay? And if I go to the top of this peak, it says it's 127 RFU. I get the allele name, I get the size, and I get the data point, okay? But we're getting a low peak height flag, an LPH. A quick way to find out why we're getting that is to look at the table information. So we have 2 ways of getting into that. We can either use this accordion arrow right here to bring out these tables, or we can use this little icon right here, show hide tables, which does the exact same thing. So it basically brings out the tables, pushes your electropherogram to the side, but maintains your viewing screen. And if we look at this trace viewer information and go to allele, we can see that if we highlight the X, we can now see down here is highlighted the green channel, amelogenin, additional information about it. But it's really the quality table or this quality tab that's going to give us more information. Now, we know there's only one marker that's giving us a flag, and we can see that here. But if I scroll through here, you can see the rest of the profile looks good as far as the quality flags. What we're getting is a low peak height, which we already knew because that was on our label. But again, why are we getting that? What is that 127 RFU being compared to? A really nice shortcut in here, similar to IDX, where you could show the genotypes table and you could actually click on a locus, get a pop out to the right of like, well, what's the expected? What was the observed? The same thing here. If we click on amelogenin, we actually get a little pop out of all of the thresholds. And if we go through here, we see the low peak height threshold for a homozygous genotype is 153 RFU. That's right down here. We also see the low peak height threshold for a heterozygous allele or 2 peaks, maximum peak height ratio or 20%, and then a cutoff value for eliminating noise, peaks above that or below that. We also see our stutter information, which we don't see in GeneMap or IDX on the electropherogram, which is really nice. We can see for this basically N-4, we have plus stutter and minus stutter around 30%. But getting back to why we see this LPH, it's because our peak height was 127 RFU and our threshold is 153. So with that information, Cheryl, would you normally okay or approve this sample or override that genotype quality and say, I'm okay with this and basically pass this profile?
Yes, because amelogenin is not really searched. So it looks good for the rest of the profile. I mean, D22 is a little off, but it's not called. It looks fine. I would drop it in small pond.
Great, great. And that process is super easy. You can override that genotype quality. We could complete the review, basically saying we want to pass this sample. And then depending on how your settings are configured, this sample could then be automatically uploaded to like your external database. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you would like to say about this sample or RapidLink 2.0?
It is very useful with all the little nuances and features you guys put on here. I like seeing that the quant, I like seeing that, you know, it matches to the profile, like the ones are low, well, the DNA is low, you know, and 2 worked fine. Synthetic, so the PCR was good. So yeah, it's been great compared. And there's better options also in the instrument that I like to go on if you're going into that soon.
We can get a little bit into the instruments in the way that one of the new things with the RapidHIT ID system software 2.0 is the implementation of workflows. And workflows are basically how you tell the instrument what screens to show, what information, if we want a default protocol selected, or if we want dual protocol options. We can define our pass parameters, our pass with review parameters, our pass partial parameters. And to show you that, I'm just going to go into this, let's see, test workflow right here, which is inactive. Oh, no, I can't edit that one. Of course, it's inactive. Let's just see. No, let's not do that one. Let's try whatever this one is. And we'll go into edit. And here we can see basically all of the settings grouped by the sample cartridge type, okay? And for those viewers, RapidIntel Plus and ACE are the only 2 cartridges that are supported with the 2.0 software and RapidLink 2.0. So that's what we see over here, RapidIntel Plus and the ACE Global Filer Express settings. Now, on both of these, they're almost identical, but what I really want to show you, because we're talking about RapidIntel Plus, is the RapidIntel Plus settings. So once we click on that, we have the option to disable the cartridge if we absolutely don't want to use it, or we could do the same with ACE if this is, for you guys, is strictly a RapidIntel Plus system. And we have the same tabs here: protocol selection, profile evaluation, review settings, sample category, and upload settings. The one thing I wanted to show real quick is, because this actually does control the instrument, is if you decide that you're never going to use the specialized protocol, an administrator has the option of coming in here and saying, I want to use the general protocol only. And for every instrument that this workflow is attached to, you'll never see the instrument protocol selection screen. It will automatically choose the general protocol so that no one can make a mistake and accidentally choose the specialized protocol if you're only using your general cotton swabs. Of course, you can do the same if you only want to use the specialized protocol and those mini or micro swabs, or you can maintain the default, which is present the user with a new screen, make them choose a protocol, right? And all of that information is carried out and provided to users during training so that they can make the right decision. Okay. And again, it's administrators who can make this choice right here and push this information to the instruments. Now, profile evaluation, this is something that goes back to the instrument run result, whether it's green, yellow, red, etc., because we have options for the parameters for passing a full profile or a partial profile. So the expert system software knows if you have a partial profile, right? If you have no peaks at a locus or one peak at a locus that is below a heterozygous or homozygous threshold, it's going to say this is a partial profile. And normally that would be a yellow check mark, right? Administrators do have the ability to come in here and say, yes, I want to pass a partial profile. And by selecting yes, you can then choose either a minimum number of flag-free markers or specific required markers that you absolutely must have information for the purposes of maybe your downstream database search or future upload to a state and national database type of thing. So you can come in here and say, I need all of these. And let's say this is bare bones, bare minimum. These are the 4 loci I need, but I do want information from my QQS and QQL. You can, of course, toggle those. This is how you say the specific loci. Up here is if you wanted to just say, well, I want 5 loci, a minimum of 5, and I don't care which they are. Okay, and you can use these together or individually. That will help with pass partial. Pass is basically saying, well, what are these parameters for a pass without any kind of review needed, and it's not a partial profile, it's a full profile. And essentially, you can take off loci here and basically consider a pass to be, yes, there is information at, let's say, TPOCS, but you don't care about it. You're not going to require it for a pass sample. Okay, and that gets a little confusing, but essentially, the main thing here is the pass partial and being able to designate which loci or how many loci could be still green coming off of the instrument without any review. Still, you would review it, but without any reviewing, the instrument would say, this is a passed partial sample. It's green. And then review settings. You can enable offline review if you're not connected to RapidLink. You can toggle if you want 1 reviewer or 2 reviewers, so like a double review for technical review. And you can also come in here and choose the profile qualities that must include the review process. So by default, it's our yellows and our reds. And then one thing I want to point out to all of our would-be new users is that if you do want to review control samples like a positive, a negative, or a ladder, you want to be able to pass a positive if there's an artifact you want to delete, or you want to pass a negative if there's an artifact you want to delete, or something weird happened and you want to be able to say, no, this is okay. By our standards, this is okay. It's a perfect profile. It just maybe had an artifact or maybe peak height imbalance. By default, that's set to no. You're going to want to choose yes if you want to be able to review a control sample. Okay, and that all of these changes only apply to runs or analyses after these changes have been made and activated on the instrument. So by choosing yes, you can't go back to something you ran 2 weeks ago where no was selected and review that control sample. Okay. And I won't spend too much time on sample category. It's basically just giving you the option of choosing which categories do you want to show up on the instrument. By default, we've got forensic unknown, other, maybe test, or some user-defined ones where you could actually create your ones. And then what are always included is test and training. And if we jump out of here real quick and go back to the runs, right now I don't have that toggled in here, but if I go here and say sample category, now we have the sample category column, and you can see as I go back here and filter back to your samples, it looks like most of them were run under category test during your validation, and one of them was run as category training. Again, the selection of that category makes absolutely no difference as far as your run-of-the-mill run and analysis. Is really meant to be used downstream if you want to use that field or that value to send a profile to a specific index or database as part of your external database. Are you guys planning on using that with Small Pond, or are you going to manually choose where those profiles go?
We will use some categories because we look at every single profile. We do direct comparisons, so that's another reason why we don't have the greens uploaded, because I'm not going to put a known profile into a Small Pond. I do like the order of step change with the instrument with 2.0. I do like that because this has happened with officers. They they go through, they start a run, they forget to hit the item number thing, and they just
Sure.
put in the cartridge, and then it runs with nothing, or it runs with, so now you have to put the cartridge in, and then you have to it asks for the type of sample, and after asks for the item number. So it's kind of gets them like, oh, okay, I got to do the item number again. So I really liked that. And then general and specialized, we will make different workflows depending on, at the lab we'll have both. I will figure out other agencies as we go.
Absolutely. And I think we're getting a little pressed for time, but before we leave RapidLink 2.0, I just want to look at this sample, which is blood that was deposited on denim. And I believe the blood was from 2023. Just wanted to say, we talked about peak height balance. We talked about intralocus and interlocus balance. This is an amazing profile for heterozygous loci, and just great profile balance across the entire profile.
And I can see that the peak height balance, the dropout compared to Intel. I mean, if you did a heat map, you would definitely see the difference.
What's next on the horizon for your laboratory in rapid DNA?
Growing. So we're going to finish the validation for the 2.0, and we're going to upgrade all our machines. We're going to stick with Small Pond with a copy of the Connecticut State database for now. So once those all get upgraded, and at the same time, we're growing our program, more agencies. We just bought another one to go at the OCME, which we're going to use for different reasons, which I'm excited about. And the mobile van, eventually, we will get that going, which is great. So yeah, I do think rapid DNA is part of our future. I think the technology will evolve even more going forward. But right now, the single source profiles that we generate in crime scenes are awesome. They've been great with version 2.0, and they've been very helpful with 1.0. So yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Wonderful. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me today. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.